Hello, my darlings. It's Seryna, and it is Monday, and I have said that I wanted to commit to showing up for you guys twice a week, Mondays and Fridays, so we could really bookend the week so that we could connect and check in and talk about some feelings. Um, since the release of the book, I have been getting so many DMs, whether it's people who've read the book or people who have heard an interview with me on a podcast or in a Facebook group or something along those lines. People have been exposed to my work, particularly ones who maybe didn't even know me before. And the big thing is about the permission they are feeling about talking about their anger or any emotion that feels a little bit less than sparkly. So if you don't already know me, that is my specialty. My name is Seryna Myers, and I hold safe and sacred space for recovering, or sometimes actively, people pleasers who need to get raw, real, and honest about what they truly feel, in particular about the uncozy conversations and emotions like anger. But really, it's in everything that they're feeling that might be, I don't know, disruptive to somebody else. And so they put their own needs last and they put their own hearts on the back burner while they prioritize everybody else. And I get it. I've been there, and in some ways, I'm still there. I am, the thing about spirituality is that it is not a destination that you arrive at. This is very much ongoing work. It is lifelong learning, and it is continuing to show up. And that is what I wanted to talk about specifically today. Now, I started my inner work journey in 2007, so it's been a bit. Um, but I mean, like, spirituality has been my, a lifelong journey for me. I started reading tarot cards in 94. I started running little ceremonies for myself in the year 2000. So all of this work has been like a pretty big part of my life for most of my entire life. And I get caught up in this frustration, sometimes with myself, sometimes with the divine, sometimes just with the situation about things not really happening when I would like them to or as fast as I'd like them to. I can't tell you how many times I have sat down either in meditation or in a healing session or in a reading with another practitioner where a message comes out around the invitation to be more patient. Patience, if you don't know me, is not my strong suit, and it's something that I definitely need to work on. And I want to talk about this in relation to our inner work. And so, because I made this commitment to showing up twice a week to have these conversations about normalizing the expressions of our feelings, and just like normalizing conversations about uncomfortable stuff, because we really do need to get more comfortable with our discomfort. Um, so by making this commitment, I essentially said to my guides, like, we're going to be doing this twice a week. I want you to show me what you need to come through. And today was a really big day for like my own inner work, my own healing. Um, because I am in a space of expansion and I'm getting some support with that, but it's also really, really big work. And it's not always the most comfortable for me either. So I'm never going to ask you to go somewhere that I'm not willing to go myself. And that means that sometimes it means digging into the hard and comfortable stuff. So I spent the entire day waiting for the guides to bring forward what it was that they wanted to talk about today. And it was pretty quiet. And so I looked at the clock and I realized it was after 5, and I was like, shit, we're running out of time. What's going on? And they gave me the nudge to pick up one of Louise Hay's decks. And the card that came out said, everything I need comes to me in the right time space sequence. And that is what I want to talk about. When people are at the beginning of their journeys, they really get caught up in the magic of this work. About how much better they feel when they're identifying the stuff that's been lurking in the shadows that they didn't have access to before. How much lighter they feel when they release it all and they're able to be in this new space with this new connection to themselves and to their new awareness in their consciousness and how they engage with themselves and with other people in the world, and how they're able to connect to even more purpose so that they can feel really, really good and like what they do matters, because it does. And we can sometimes get so caught up in the beauty of what it means to be on a spiritual path um, that we don't really realize how much time will pass when things start to get a little bit harder. And the thing is my experience anyway, is that when we're doing spiritual work, it's not all or nothing. It is really a layered approach. So we're going to have these experiences, these awakenings, these epiphanies, and whatever. And the more we dig in, the more commitment we show, the more we show up for this path, the deeper we're going to go. And sometimes we get to the harder stuff. For me, I know last December, in a therapy session, not even in my own meditation practice, although I do consider therapy to be spiritual work as well. In a therapy session, I had an epiphany that answered the question that I asked in November of 2008. So I waited 12 years for an answer. And when it first came forward, I'm going to tell you this, there was no relief. I was angry. I couldn't be in this place of like, oh, wow, wonderful. Like I've been seeking this answer and here it is. And isn't that great? I kind of tailspun a little bit with this idea of why did that take so long? Why didn't I see this before now? And the worst one, I should have known better. I have caught myself in this trap, not in the early days of my path, but actually like when I was getting like 5 and 10 years into the journey. I would actually say the closer I got to the 10-year mark, the harder it became. Where I would catch myself either repeating an old pattern, uncovering a limited belief that I thought I'd already healed, or just seeing a new dimension of my pain and being so frustrated that it affected me in that way. And sometimes what happens when we're on a spiritual journey is we forget that we're human and that we're still going to have very human reactions and experiences and feelings. That, yes, we can decide to ascribe to the high vibe tribe, but that doesn't mean that hard or difficult or heartbreaking things aren't going to still happen sometimes. And to expect ourselves to always be able to rise above, to deny the feelings that come with those things because they're not perfect or pretty or Instagram worthy, is to basically spiritually bypass yourself. We need to integrate the shadows into our light work if we really want to call it light work. I know so many people who are going out, championing this idea of being light workers or light warriors, who are afraid of the shadows and who actually pretend that those things aren't even existing, that they don't take place, that they are somehow above it. They're not above it, they're in denial. Because unless you are someone who is like literally like meditating 20 out of 24 hours in a day, who is, not really existing in like our current human condition because you're, I don't know, secluded up on top of a mountain or living in an ashram for your whole life or something like that. There are like super, super rare exceptions of people who are going to be able to rise above all the time, but they are very likely not going to be existing in our regular modern life. Hardship is part of the experience. We came here, we chose, our souls chose these bodies in these places at these times for a reason. So we can't just decide to be selective on the lessons that we choose. Our soul created an itinerary when it came here. And it chose to be here at this time to have these experiences. So we can't just pretend they're not happening. We have to be there. And we have to be willing to do it. Now, this doesn't mean that, when you've gone to the work of cultivating all these different tools to help you manage your energy, to be able to release and transmute and whatever, you can still apply those tools, of course. What I'm asking you to do is not deny that there was something to work on in the first place. And in this is also, I recognize, a really big ask of you to trust. And not trust in me, but to trust in the divine. To trust that everything is unfolding as it's supposed to, at the time it's supposed to, even if that time is not your time, even if it was not when you were hoping for, even if you feel like you should have learned those lessons by now. Remember, this is a layered approach. Likely, you learned parts of those lessons before now. When I sat down with my guides and I literally had an angry conversation with them last December about having waited 12 years to get an answer, they said, we couldn't have given you the answer then, Seryna. It would have blown your mind. And then I thought about the person I was in November 2008. Someone whose boss had nicknamed her Little Ball of Rage. Someone who had a chip on her shoulder, who was very guarded, who was very careful of what parts of herself she shared. She came off as an open book, but she was really very careful in controlling the narrative. I have to catch myself in that still because I'm, working on my own stuff and transmuting my own pain from my childhood and the shame that comes from those stories. And she wasn't at that place yet. She was very, very early in her journey. And I think if I had sat down at that time at 28 years old and asked that question and received the answer that I received 12 years later, it probably would have shattered my worldview. I would say even in 2008, I didn't consider myself to be deeply spiritual at that time. I was doing this work as a way of like accessing my subconscious. I was treating it as like a psychological experiment with myself. So to have gone as deep as I went um, would have been, if it had been possible, it could have been really damaging. So we're not just actually trusting the timing of the information that we're getting towards our own healing, but also the process. That yes, maybe we're going to get little nuggets along the way. And yes, that healing may be happening slower than we'd like. But it is what's possible for us. It is what is in our best interest. And when you foster your relationship with the divine, where you can trust and believe that the universe has your back, that's when it becomes possible. Even if it is a little frustrating from time to time, you know that it's all happening in support of your highest good and truth. So, that is the information and the invitation for you today, my darling, to trust the process, to know that it's all working out in your favor, and to be patient. As much as it sucks, things might go a little slower than you'd like, but they are happening. Know that. I'll see you again on Friday. Take care.